Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel, and thanks for logging on. Today we're discussing the Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Grande Tradition Minute Repeater. You can see and you can purchase this extraordinary 15-day power reserve regulator minute repeater from Jaeger-LeCoultre on our website. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you enjoy these videos, and please click on the card in the upper right hand corner of the screen at any time during this video to see our full sales listing for this watch with additional accessories included, high resolution images for your desktop, and naturally complete pricing details for this extraordinary 15-day power reserve minute repeater regulator. Now on my wrist, 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference, you can see that this watch is a giant. In stature and size, this one simply stands out from the pack, even among the best of Jaeger-LeCoultre. Now I've experienced all of them, from the Triptyque Reverso to the Gyro Tourbillon 3, Gyro Tourbillon 1, Gyro Tourbillon 2, Master Grande Tradition, Grande Complication. This watch is simply exceptional because of its size, its stance, unique use of yellow gold, the combination of a minute repeater with 15 days of power reserve and a regulator, plus an extraordinary and revolutionary Jaeger-LeCoultre diamond-coated silicone escapement. Rest assured, as one of only 100, if you own one of them, you'll never see another. Now, on my wrist, 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference, this 2009 limited edition is 44 millimeters across the round of the case, not inclusive of crown or repeater slide. It's thick, but not as thick as it looks. At 15.5 millimeters, you can see the watch has a generously domed bezel, but the tightest of sleeves will get hung up on the repeater slide itself. Across the wrist, it's 53 millimeters from side to side, extremity to extremity. However, I can tell you that because of the depth of the bezel, the case, the lugs themselves, the watch wears a ton on the wrist, so much mass to match that class. You feel the impression of a simply awesome timepiece because it's as heavy and grand as you would expect. You can see that the clasp is a full yellow gold 18 karat deployant. This is Jaeger-LeCoultre's 3rd generation deployant clasp, the 1st generation double folding, which is good for smaller wrists because it doesn't have the one big up and over fold that can pinch smaller wrists like mine. And the strap is one of JLC's absolute best. Now, you would imagine that strap quality is consistent from one model to the next within a single catalog, but in fact, some references, because of their stature, because of their importance, do get better grades of leather and higher grades of strap, and this is a great example of that. With curved spring bars to trace the arc of the case, it's generously bolstered, meaty, and substantial. And that meatiness continues onto the broad folded sides, the gorgeous tight hand-laid monotone stitch, and a superb supple calfskin underneath. Now the case is beautifully finished. For something so massive, a certain amount of finishing virtuosity is necessary to break up the sheer monolithic size of it. You'll note polished lug tops and polished hairline bevels that taper into the case band. They taper into the case band and give way to a satin finish on the flank, and you'll note the contrast between the polish of the repeater slide and the satin finish of its track. And at the same time, there's a gorgeous domed bezel that nicely transitions from the lug hoods to the sapphire, beautifully polished for contrast. The dial itself is simply an event. You'll note the semicircle of the top separated from the semicircle of the bottom by beautiful traditional rose-lathe guilloche. All of the individual indications of power reserve, small seconds, torque meter assembly, minutes at center, and the hours sub-register at 12, beautifully defined. And within the hours register, you can see polished and hand-applied yellow gold hour indices in dart style. Now, I'll move the regulator minutes hand out of the way so you can see to better effect what's going on. But regulators from Jaeger-LeCoultre are not terribly common. The combination of the regulator with the minute repeater is downright singular, and you'll note the repeater does get pride of place on this dial. You'll note the presence of both the hour and minute repeater strikers. You can see a small sliver of the repeater gong right next to them within the torque meter assembly, and a small plaque at the base of the dial indicating the point at which the repeater gong itself has been welded using a patented process to the sapphire. That's how the watch manages to attain such a loud, bright, and sustaining tone. You'll also note the use of a traditional clou de Paris hobnail throughout the lower set of registers as well as the center of the hour sub-register. It's beautifully executed, but the real star of the show is on the case back. With dual mainspring barrels and a 15-day power reserve, this manual wind caliber is special to begin with. Add the fact that the mainspring barrel jewels are set in traditional screw-fix chaton, underneath a 3/4 bridge pocket watch style, and it starts to take on a little bit of a vintage vibe, which is intentional. You'll also note the Côte de Soleil radiating out from the balance. Côte de Soleil is a specialty on Jaeger-LeCoultre's top-end complications, and it's executed here on what's commonly known as German silver, or Micourt. It is a combination of copper and nickel and zinc. We're not going to call it German silver because we are in the Vallée de Joux with Jaeger-LeCoultre, so this Micourt is beautifully finished with its sort of amber or honey hue. You note how it's not brilliantly silver like rhodium-plated Swiss brass. This is the old-fashioned way of making a repeater bridge, and the reason is because Jaeger-LeCoultre, originally a manufacturer par excellence of repeating calibers in the late 19th century, when it had almost 100 individual repeating calibers, has brought forward all of the finishing traditions of that era with modern technology, and that's what you see on the balance. You'll note there's a little Cyclops eye style magnifier underneath the caseback sapphire. The better to see the synthetic all silicon diamond-coated escapement components, the anchor and the escape wheel, a first of their kind in serially produced Jaeger-LeCoultre watches. Those debuted in the Master Compressor Extreme Lab of 2007, the Lab 1, not the Lab 2, and then in 2009 with this Master Grande Tradition series, the Tourbillon Quantième Perpetuel of 300 pieces, and this Master Grande Tradition Minute Repeater regulator both featured that breakthrough technology, which to date has not been revived for use in any other Jaeger-LeCoultre references. So these were in many ways the first and the last, and while the Tourbillon Perpetual Calendar was made in 300 pieces, this reference was constructed in only 100 copies. And you'll note other refinements. You'll note atop the fully hand-engraved dual-anchored balance bridge, there's a beautiful black polished cover for the regulator assembly. The watch ticks along at a stately 21,600 vibrations per hour, the better to deliver the 15 days of autonomy between windings. All of the screws, needless to say, are fired in a kiln and not chemically blued, and rare for Jaeger-LeCoultre, the highest standard of finishing in all respects. JLC, like many brands, does have several levels of finishing dependent on price and stature of the piece concerned. This is the highest level, proving that when JLC wants, they can do Lange, they can do Patek Philippe, they can do Vacheron Constantin, and you'll see that beautiful mirrored anglage along the edge of every bridge, every cock, and every jewel sink. Simply incredible. Of course, what's power reserve if you don't know how well the watch is running throughout that period? And that's what the torque meter assembly is for. You'll note the torque meter assembly superimposed over the repeater strikers. It lets you know how much torque the mainspring barrels are releasing, effectively how well the watch is running throughout its power reserve. Ideally, more torque the better for the sake of chronometry. Thus, you can see the torque meter assembly and monitor not just how long the watch has yet to run, but how well the watch is running at any given time. Furthermore, you'll note that it disengages when you're winding the watch, so there's always something to animate this dial and excite the owner. Finally, and I'm going to try to focus in so you can see this to good effect, but take a look at the signature. There it is. The signature of the chronometry standard on the case flank. You'll note it says 1,000 hours chrono, not 1,000 hours control, because the synthetic escapement created for these two special edition models, along with the Tourbillon Perpetual, had a separate timing standard that was different from even the most exacting 1,000 hours controls. The deviation for the 1,000 hours chrono, only ever used on these two models, was no worse than -1 second plus 4 seconds per day. This watch is, in every sense of the word, exceptional. If you want the best, you can see it and you can buy it on our website.